Hey, it's Chris. Last week was the week to end all weeks of crowdfunding. Let me be very clear, though. This week is not that, but it is just one notch below with a couple recent announcements as well as a couple delays. So it's not freaking that much less, right? So my wallet is actually probably going to be worse this week than it was this past week. And that's saying something right there from that aspect of things. That being said, quick side tangent. What do you want to see out of a review? What are you not getting out of a review? What spin would you like to see different? 5 things, 5 minutes, 10 things under 10 minutes. Whatever you want to see, let me know. I am open to ideas. I am fresh, blank canvas for that aspect of things. That's all I got. Let's go right into it, though. First up, 26th. I called it. Cthulhu's coming back, season 3. What do you need to know? Well, it's a dungeon crawl scenario-based modular map system with elder gods, minions, little bosses, everything else in between. Now, again, the only question is, do you really need it all? Spoilers, you don't. And that's really the aspect of things. Now, the other question is, how much is it going to cost you? Because there were some rumblings, there were some conversations that were apparently, allegedly, even maybe confirmed out of Essen. And maybe with some of the Man vs. Meeple details that Simons have spoilered them with, which is kind of strange because Quackalope and Board Game Co. have been like their spoiler people for like the past 2 years. And so it was kind of strange in a good way to see Man vs. Meeple getting some of that exclusive. And we're just getting a lot more. There's at least 2 Elder Gods that we know of in the base game. The question is just gonna be how much more is there? Because the Unspeakable box is going to be allegedly available from those rumors that I mentioned, along with just a little plethora of everything else, allowing some mixing and matching, allowing some relics, some asymmetric, things that are going to offer both highs, lows, dangers, increases in terms of difficulty, everything that you may want of this game. Now, again, this isn't everyone's piece de resistance, but this is my number 1 Simon game of all time. So, well, maybe 2 now with Marvel United. We're kind of hedging here, but especially with X-Men. Anyway, but that's what is going to be kind of cool, right? Like what do you need to know from that aspect of things? What would make you get in? What is the Unspeakable Pledge actually going to look like monetarily? That is probably the biggest unknown question mark, because those boxes on the secondary market right now are selling somewhere between like $250 and $300 a piece. How much upcharge is Simon going to have? I'm guessing, I'm assuming, I think that's another one of the other rumors that was confirmed, was that this big guy was going to be offered again too, which is utterly ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. If you missed my other video talking about it like a week and a half ago, right before the announcement, you don't need this thing. You do not need it. Don't get it. One scenario, just like Galactus, is not worth it. Especially this one. Like Galactus, you could at least like pretend like, oh yeah, I'm a huge Marvel fanboy, I can paint it, whatever. This thing, no. This thing is, no. And so if it's only one scenario, gameplay content-wise, you're going to have plenty in just this with one of the other expansions, let alone a freaking Unspeakable box, which you could buy in the secondary market for the same price as this big guy. So that's a big pass. But how much other stuff is going to be there? How many other expansions is Simon going to try to throw in? And do you need all of them? Or are you going to pick and choose? Like, because you only need so much. That's going to be number 1 on the 26th. Also, launching on the 25th, delayed from last week, 20 strong from Chip Theory Games. And this is the other game that I'm seriously looking at, because if they can give me a little bit of glimpse of what this may look like potentially, or the firmer design plans of there may be multiplayer for this, there may be firmer design, there will be multiplayer for this down the line. I am tempted to get this because it's $65 for 3 of these decks, 2 of their properties and 1 of their new properties, the Solar Suits, Solar Space Battle situation, and it's offering something different. It's probably going to be a really good price as well. Chip Theory, always lower. Chip Theory, better on crowdfunding. You know what you're getting. It's probably overproduced, but again, you know what you're getting. So there's not a whole lot of fear from that aspect as well. So that's going to be the other one that's going to be sort of on people's radar. The third one is also delayed from last week, and this is Witchwood from Destinies. This is the latest Witchwood from Destinies. Witchwood Destinies system, an expansion to the Destinies from Lucky Duck. This is going to be another interesting test. Like, how do you like the Dark Quarter system versus the Destinies system? Dark Quarter, that was earlier on crowdfunding this year, cooperative Destinies system. Destinies, competitive. The die rolling, skill checking, moving across a modular map that you're exploring and slowly uncovering and upgrading your skills in sort of a downwards way because you're trying to lower the values that needed to get the positive skill checks. I don't know. It was one of those games that I really liked the concept of, but I didn't see it having a whole lot of replayability for me because I'm not one of those people that really likes watching movies or reading books again, right? Like once I know what happens, spoiler, cat's out of the bag. And so for that, it's like once you play it once through, you know sort of where things are at, and it becomes more of a can I just do it quicker than you, rather than the exploration and the discovery that is sometimes more of the fun for me personally in that type of game. I mean, I think it's a very solid game. Lucky Duck Games has done clearly a good project in terms of the app system that they're using across the board, that they've modified, that they've tweaked, that they've just continued to use, that was sort of poo-pooed when it came out, that they basically said, hey, we're going to stick or stake our next, couple years worth of games on in some way, shape, or form. So I give them a lot of kudos from that standpoint. That's also launching on the 25th. I expect all three of these, I expect Cthulhu to be probably even more than Oathsworn. Probably. It's going to be more than Oathsworn. I expect these other two to be similar to, say, like Warcrow Adventures as well. Warcrow Adventures to Destinies. 20 Strong maybe equivalent to something else in between, like Spirit Island, if you will. Like comparison price-wise. So price-wise, this one already could be bigger than this past week, as weird as that is to say. Maybe not from top to bottom, but I've only gone through 3 of the games, and I have about 17 more that we can discuss along the way as we go. And next up is going to be Oceans, Legends of the Deep, and this is an expansion to add more to the base game of Oceans from North Star Games. This is going to add more legendary mythical creatures, just abilities to use across the board. My big concern with Oceans, the reason I ended up trading it away after I got it, I think the game is, again, very solid. I know why people like it, but it was like, for me personally, I wanted the second half of the game, right? But the first half of the game, you really had these 6 to 8 traits that you were utilizing, and it was basically mostly the same traits to get you to the second half of the game, which is the more interesting part. And if you're giving me more of the interesting part and you're optimizing it, or, even just allowing me to skip over that portion a little bit, I would be in on that. Now, again, with North Star Games, with the previous Oceans version, they did like the bling out. It was incredibly deluxified with these little fish tokens and moving them across and the board and all sorts of stuff like that. But you had this deep deck was individually a full, unique deck of abilities, whereas the first half was like the opposite. The second half was, just everything unique, like this thick, and it was cool because you never played the same ones. They were all massively overpowered, and it just made it fun crazy. And so if I get more of that, again, I would reconsider definitely getting back in on this side of things as well. But I'm guessing the price point is going to be a little bit higher than I'd probably like for that type of game that I'm willing to take the chance on, because of some of those deluxifications that I'm guessing are going to probably be included on the crowdfunding side of things that won't necessarily need to be there on the retail, or that they won't try and include in the retail to make the price point lower, which again, is fine. Where do you want to draw your line on your deluxifications? Next up, we have the game that is going to be another interesting test of the market. Like, this is going to be a smaller game, but it reminds me a little bit more of Cascadia because, well, it's from the designer of Cascadia, and that's Tabriz. So basic concept of this is you're going to be meeple moving, quick planning, quick action across a Persian bazaar. You're trying to fill commissions of clients and get the most prestige from doing these commissions in the first place, right? Area movement, dice rolling, income phase, advanced market. There's going to be increased variability, increased difficulty if you want. But if you already want to try it out, you can go over to the game found page. I'll have that link down below. They have a Tabletopia already set up, and as well as the rulebook on the pre-launch page. It's going to be launching on the 24th. This is probably the other one that I see flying under the lot of radar, and just, not necessarily getting the cash that the other games are right now and the attention, but this is one that's probably, of these ones, more of a sure shot for me backing it, probably, if the incentivized rewards are there, more so than probably even, say, 20 Strong from that aspect of things. So that's why I'm excited about it when it's going to be launching. Next up, also was supposed to be launching like a month ago, but now got delayed. This is Aegean Sea. This is over on BackerKit, and this takes sort of a different spin on the card play, drafting, tile playing sort of situation, where you have cards that you're going to be playing the game with, and you're going to be manipulating not only just your cards, but you're going to be putting down the cards you're drawing or the resources you're managing around the outside of the cards on the various sides, based on, whether they're people, their crafts, there's resources, their buildings, how you're going to be building it up on this island that you're managing in the first place. This is the sleeper hit, I think, of the week, along with Tabriz, that is going to be flying under the radar. But as, like I mentioned before, ones that are well worth watching, because there's one or two of those every single week. I covered two of those yesterday in the review of all of the crowdfunding games that launched. I wasn't expecting Portents and Genpei to really strike my fancy, but those are the ones that really caught my eye that I wasn't expecting to, that I didn't even know much about. And I know more about these two than I did about those two last week. And that's the sort of exciting thing when you talk about these games that come out of nowhere. And that's why I want to see what this can do when it also launches. Now, next up, I have to apologize already to BFF Games because this is the expansion to Hidden Leaders. This is the Forgotten Legends expansion. Now, this is going to be adding 3 modules to the base game of Hidden Leaders. If you're not familiar with Hidden Leaders, basically you have 2 power tracks on the map. You're drawing and playing individual cards that are going to manipulate those factions on the board, either one way or the other. And you're trying to, by the end of the game, when the end game is triggered by someone in the group playing, has a certain number of these cards face up in front of them, having these factions in certain distributions or certain positions, either one higher than the other higher than the first one, or both of them at one end, or having them right next to each other. And all of that's going to depend on how you play those cards. So there's a lot of take that, there's a lot of interaction, there's a lot of back and forth if you like that style of game. And the 3 modules that there's going to be adding, it's going to be adding a Corruptions module, it's going to be adding a Guardians module, and it's going to be adding an Artifacts module. Artifacts are just that. Basically, the Artifact deck is going to be adding an asymmetric card that gives you a certain number of abilities that's going to be highly interactive in terms of what's going to be able to be done or how you can affect things, not only with your cards, but elsewhere on the board. The Guardians is going to be a separate faction that is going to be manipulatable, but also playable. It's going to be sort of a secret faction where, you know, if you play with 2 players, you're going to mix 2 hidden leaders plus 1 guardian leader. And so you don't know if the other person is actually manipulating the guardian because they have the guardian, or just because you're drawing guardian cards that are going to be included in the main deck that you're drawing from already. The third one is Corruption, and Corruption is going to slowly eat away or change the factions that the cards that you have in the first place are associated with. And so it's going to add a little bit of a different dynamic in terms of some of the end game victory scoring if there is a tie sometimes with this game when one or more person actually have the right configuration of the faction who won. And so that's what that's going to be adding as well. The other one that's going to be launching right after that on the 25th, in addition, is the sequel standalone expansion to the King's Dilemma, the Queen's Dilemma. And this is coming from Horrible Guilds. And if you wanted King's Dilemma and you couldn't get it, and now this is going to be the interesting thing, like Jurassic Park, right? We just saw Jurassic Park Legacy do the Legacy thing on crowdfunding, and it kind of, I'll be frank, let people down. There wasn't really a whole lot of incentive besides like extra slight alt variations of miniatures that didn't add any additional gameplay content to get it on crowdfunding versus to wait for it at retail and wait to see sort of what it entailed. And now I have not been one of those people who's ever played King's Dilemma. I don't have the group to play King's Dilemma. I wouldn't have the group to play Queen's Dilemma. Am I still going to be looking at it? Absolutely. But it's going to be more expansive. It's going to be more of an overarching, you know, sort of premise. It's not going to be just sort of like this little kingdom. It's going to be sort of macro as well as micromanagement. And the problem with these games in the first place is you need to have a consistent group, especially with this one. And that's really the question of, is it going to be worthwhile? How do you do a legacy game to make it more worthwhile to people on crowdfunding? Because you're not going to offer a whole lot of exclusives, I don't think. Are you going to offer a better price point? Are you just going to deluxify the heck out of it, sort of like Jurassic Park did? What is going to be the support for that level of things? This is the big wild card of the week. I could see it swinging one way or the other, and I don't really know which way it's going to go. But I mean, we don't have a whole lot of time to wait, so let's see what Horrible Guild can bring to us from that standpoint. Going back a day again, we are actually, if you're familiar with this one at all, this is Cuore Quest, Keep on Questing. This is an expansion to the family level dungeon crawler that allowed families and kids to basically submit their pictures and have those made into monsters in the game, which was kind of a cool idea. My 9-year-old would actually really kind of be able to be like really good at that actually. And even my 7-year-old who's been drawing like in his little picture book and like he like outlines like the monsters like 5 times. He's like, look at Dad, look how cool it is. Anyway, this is offering more that you can do. Now you're going to be able to allegedly level up your heroes between the quests, keep the treasure from one adventure to the other, as well as giving you full 2 campaigns to be able to play through, which each contain 5 brand new adventures. It's a simple guidance adventure-based system dungeon crawl, if you will. It's the, you know, bridge to adult dungeon crawls, if you like that, with still some ability to entertain us as well as your kids without overwhelming them at the same time. This is going to be a new expansion. I'm assuming there's going to be some sort of packaging or bundling if you want to incentivize people to potentially get it in the first place if you don't already have a copy. So that's also going to be launching on the 24th. Next up, we actually have Die of the Dead, the expansion from Die of the Dead, which is also going to be modular, just like the Hidden Leaders expansion. Now, I don't have the exact details. There's a little bit more detail on Board Game Geek, but Die of the Dead basically is this dice rolling, pseudo resource management style game with a little bit of asymmetric abilities depending on how much of a variant or difficulty you want to bring with it, where you are slowly placing your dice in these little Dia de Muertos coffins, and you are slowly moving them or rotating them through 4 different spaces that are allowing you to manipulate them in different ways based on what you roll, based on whose dice are in there, or based on how many dice are in there. And the goal is that once you get one of these dice drafted from the last one in the succession on the 4th spot, then they get placed on the little tower. And if you have the little stairs that kind of go up as you place them on the stairs, that's how you can acquire some additional resources, some additional abilities, or just that's how you work your way towards the end of the game. The 2 expansions listed on Board Game Geek, the Ofrenda and the Zolo expansions. The Zolo expansion is going to offer you dogs that are going to allow you ways to mitigate, ways to remember, ways to figure out or hint at what's in each of the coffins. And the Ofrenda one is going to be giving you more of the feel of a dice drafting, transforming it into more of that mechanism where you're trying to make your altar more appealing to your ancestors. Instead of putting the dice into the caskets, you're drafting dice from the caskets to represent the gifts that you're trying to adorn on your altar in the first place. This is taking more of the luck out of it and more of a puzzle-like nature, which actually could be very refreshing. I'm going to have a review coming out sometime between now and hopefully the beginning campaign of the base game alone and my thoughts about what these expansions could add in addition. And this one's launching on the 27th. Next up over on GameFound, we have Artisans, which is launching on the 25th. And Artisans is a challenging family style card game for 2 to 4 players. In about 45 minutes, you're trying to develop skills in order to use 7 different materials as asymmetric artisans that you're drafting or choosing at the beginning of the game. You're playing over 12 rounds in the course of a year, where you're trying to craft art objects and win victory points in each of the 2 phases of those rounds. First phase, trading, collecting, gathering the art objects. It ends when somebody actually grabs the first player marker. So it gives you then another additional way to sort of keep that side of things open as you're trying to gather what you need to do. And the second phase of things is going to be developing your skills by playing any number of these cards that are going to give you one material of your choice. Each time you play the same material, you upgrade that skill to the next level, but you can't play more cards than you've played on the previous level. There's going to be some sort of hand management set collection-esque aspect to this. I've seen this one getting advertised on GameFound, Board Game Geek, as well as on Facebook already, so it should be another interesting test of, okay, what does the GameFound effect do? Because I don't really know how those things are sort of happening or affecting smaller projects on GameFound and BackerKit right now, so this is going to be one that may test that market a little bit from that sense, and that's launching on the 25th. Now I have a game that I saw being advertised, I think it was on Reddit, Hero Emergency Room. Basically a real life ER resident doctor has decided that they're going to make a emergency room game in the setting of as realistic as they can. I don't have a whole lot more details. Reddit post that I'll try and link down below if I can find it talks a little bit more, but this is definitely from a first time creator. It should be interesting to see what they can bring to the table because medical games aren't that popular. Medical games haven't really been done that well to a great extent. I mean, we think of like Clinic, right? And you think of like MD Rush, that one. And so those are like really the only 2. And I think it's really kind of cool to see something in this genre as someone with a medical background. So I'm interested to see what that happens and what that looks like when it launches on the 25th as well. Next up, we have Tesseract. This is probably my other sleeper hit of the week. I can see this one going either way as well. It gives me sort of vibes of the things that I like, right? This is a heavy, not heavy, but heavier cooperative game, 60 to 90 minutes, where you're taking on, the Tesseract as sort of a big cube trying to take over the world, essentially. Think Marvel, only, a lot bigger. And so it's going to be made up of 64, get this, 64 dice. I mean, think of Jenga, but think with dice. And you're going to be having to allocate and remove those dice from the Tesseract in one of various ways by making sets or runs or collections that you can then take out and piece off until you win. You're going to have asymmetric powers in order to do so. It's going to be dice manipulation. And this one has me really excited just by reading the description right now. So if the price point is right, if it looks solid, this could be like my Race to the Raft or portents from this past week of games that I go, holy cow, like where did this one come from? Like, wow, I'm really impressed by this. So that one needs to be on your radar. That one's launching on the 25th. Then we also have, I'm just going to speed through these as much as I can because I'm going through a lot of these here at the end. We have Tanto Cuore. This is Memento Mori. This is a deck builder in the lines of Dominions, but there's maids being your deck builders. And the theme, nope. pass. Can't even find the expansion on Board Game Geek. I'm not sure who it's going through. It was previously through Arclight, so we'll see what happens when that's supposed to be launching on the 25th as well. Then we have, on the 25th, we have Goblins Uprising, where essentially you are, instead of the punching bags being goblins and knocking them out, you are the goblins. You are trying to uprise against the tall folk, as they say in the game, or the humans. And you have guardians that are going to be helping you, creatures that you can recruit along the way in order to help you overtake the tall race in the first place. And then you have the ability, as you get stronger, the boss is also going to change. It's going to change how they interact with you, and so it's going to have some sort of dynamic that's going to go along with you, not just be more of a static, you know, I do this at this and I do this at this. So it's going to be another one of those where, what can you bring to me? I already checked out the website though. It's going to be miniature based, so expect the price point to be a little bit pricier from that side of things. Then we have Survival of the Fattest. Now this could go a lot of different ways, but this is more of a survival game as a woodland creature. You're trying to store up the most food that you can over 3 rounds or seasons, and you're going to be doing this in several different ways: worker placement, set collection, resource management style of game. And so it's one that's going to be out there as well. This one's also launching on the 25th. This one's going to be utilizing recipes as well as unique tricks and abilities that you're going to use to forage for food, gather the food, complete recipes, and store the most, as well as go to the market for some sort of in-game bonus, right? I'm not really sure market is necessarily a thematic incorporation for survival in the woods, but you know what, we'll take it. We'll take it from there. Next up, we have Merchants of Karanor. This one is also a merchant's adventure on the road of Karanor as you become a wandering merchant surfing for wealth and glory. Your 10 notoriety points are where you're going in this economic negotiation, pick up and deliver style of game. You're gonna have 6 actions that are permitted, but you can only do 4 of them per turn in terms of traveling, collecting resources, as well as interacting with locals, opening commerce, work, or even a special action that's available to you. Income, travel, recruit, buy stuff, offer your services to the black market, or try to acquire rare artifacts. Interactions are very, very, very important, they say, and the black market cards will allow you to slow your opponents, and so there's going to be some take that as well. How do you feel like that in a pick up and deliver style of game? This one's also going to be launching on the 25th. Now, the heaviest, not weight game, but the actual heaviest style playing game of the week potentially is Copan. Copan is sort of a heavy Euro game, 1 to 4 players, worker placement, tile placement, reverse difficulty curve. It says, because as play begins, resources are plentiful, but as you go along, the resources are going to become less and less and less. So how you interact, how you move, even at the beginning, is going to have potential ramifications, turns later. And Copan's aboriginal doom is sort of what you're playing until, because the name is Copan, dying city, right? Alluding to the fact that things are going to go downhill rather quickly. You're just trying to keep yourself alive and create the destiny in this Mayan civilization downfall the best you can, and this one's going to be launching on the 27th. Now, this one's probably going to be intriguing to people because it's a little bit of something different. Ion Game Design is coming out with a prequel to PAX Viking, and I know there's a lot of people out there that like the PAX games in general. This one is coming out on the 25th. This is a standalone prequel expansion inspired with some different mechanics to the original PAX Viking system. You are one of the prominent families representing the Nordic culture as you evolve and try to become the most formidable family in there. You're going to be placing your family members on the map, using them for accessing various effects and various abilities, as well as various worker actions that are available to you. And you're going to be trying to go through and gain achievement through the achievement tree and on the family board that affects your family's opportunities going forward. You're going to be trying to hold 2 future level achievements in order to win from said achievement tree. If no player can do that before a set number of turns, well, the one with the most victory points is going to win instead. So Ion Game Design, we've seen a little bit of everything come out from them. This is going to be another interesting test in the market. And like I said, it's launching on the 25th. Next up, we have Zoo Tycoon, the board game, right? It sounds like more like a video game, but this is Zoo Tycoon, the board game where you're trying to create, well, a zoo, right? And you're going to have all your animals, your lions, gorillas, your elephants, your tigers, your everything, you know, along those lines. You're going to be trying to attract guests. You're going to be doing partnerships with other parks or conservation systems, or even trying to get endangered species back into the wild in sort of this set collection, market-based simulation game with a significant portion of tile placement. They say there's going to be 34 different animals that are going to be represented by, they say, 230 different meeples. So this is like wild Serengeti on steroids, if you will. You're going to be playing your cards right, and you're going to have animals also producing offspring, but because that's important for those said conservation projects, because it's going to be a great source of popularity. I mean, baby animals, right? Baby animals. Oh, anyway, that's what my 2-year-old always says. Oh. However, you have to have a place for them when they get older, so you can't just breed them and not have anywhere for them to go. Zoo in a box, essentially, is what they're going for in the description. Each animal has 3 unique characteristics that you're going to have to be watching out for: popularity with visitors, educational value, and nature conversation, because you obviously want to provide as much education about the animals as you can, right? I mean, that's the real reason you go to the zoo, right? That's the real reason I take my kids to the zoo. Kids, I think it's time that you learn how the life cycle of a penguin works. No, I mean, the kids want to go because the penguins are cool and they're jumping in and out of the water and they swim really cool, and that's what you want to see. But high replay value, they say, novel game mechanism, whatever that means, with the animal market, supply and demand challenges are going to be presented. But we'll kind of see, is this a game that we better off or more sounding like the PC version of things? But we're going to see what it can do in the board game side of things. And it really reminds me more of what's the other one? New York Zoo. It gives me kind of those vibes in a little bit different sense, with a ton more meeples, apparently. So that one is also launching on the 25th. Now we're going to Lords of Baseball, which is launching on the 27th. It's a baseball campaign-driven hand management tech tree style of game, right? This one reminds me a little bit, if you're familiar with 11, the soccer/football game manager from Portal Games, which came out like a year or two ago, which is still in the process of being made. And it reminds me of that because it seems like you're going more from a top-down view, not like an individual player-by-player, batting, pitching sort of style. You're giving more of the top-down view, where you're playing anywhere from 3, 5, or 7 different seasons, and you're playing overarching things that are going to affect your team on an edge-by-edge, game-by-game basis, and you're going to be playing a certain number of games per season in order to determine, well, who's the winner. So it's going to be a little bit of an interesting test. It says 1 to 16 players in the Board Game Geek description, so take that for what you will. I'm not sure what that actually means, if you go like tournament style, or each team actually is like a new charter or expansion that can be included in the league, and so how you're going to go head to head, or how you're going to play with multiple people over campaign season, especially when you're not playing each other. You're going to play AI at times, you're going to play multiple AIs, or AI is going to play each other. How are you going to keep that dynamic and keep track of it? I mean, that's exactly what 11 the Football Manager does. So this is only more of that with baseball. This is from L4 Studios and Laboratory H, and so we'll see what they bring to the table on the 27th. We're getting close to the end here. This is Haunticulture next up, and we're going to be doing a Creepy Manor Halloween style of things, launching appropriately timed wise this year. And like the name suggests, this is going to be sort of a combination of making the best haunted house with like horticulture combination, and you're using basically spooky spirits, ghosts, and creatures of the Halloween night to do so in sort of a tile placement, hand management, deck construction with a little bit of auction bidding style of mechanic. And so we're going to see exactly what Tinkerbot Games can bring to us, because this is a 1 to 4 player game. You're going to be doing bidding, you're going to be spending money in order to clear junk out, you're going to be using asymmetric abilities and special monsters in order to replace the basic monsters that you start with, to give you better access and more abilities to do these sort of actions in the first place. You end after 4 rounds, when each person tallies up their points scored for the plants that they have in front of them, the ornaments that they've acquired, and the secret objectives that they've been given at the beginning of the game. So this one again is going to be launching on the 27th, so we'll see how it compares. Last up here, we have a game called Die-Namo. This is supposedly going to be launching as well on the 27th. And this is a game of like sort of bluffing, bidding, and dice rolling, where you're going to be collecting cards from the supply, trying to get 1 through 6 in a certain number. And on a turn, you're going to be either collecting 1 card from the supply pile, you're going to be making a bet, or you're going to be just losing a card if you're unwilling or unable to perform any of the previous actions. And like I said, I mean, it's going to be sort of a roll, gather, or lose style of things. I mean, they give sort of a Board Game Geek description, but I don't really get quite the flow. I feel like we're missing a small few nuances and that, and so I'll link it down below and you can check it out for yourself. But more colors, more points, point at the end wins. So we'll see what happens when that one launches as well on the 27th. Just a brief campaign update here at the end, just because I like talking about this a little bit each week as well. Oathsworn, again, killing it. Almost already at 1.9 million. Canvas over $250,000 as well, 340,000. Race to the Raft, almost $200,000. Pompero is going to break 100,000 probably in under a week. They're at 85. Wonderland's War only has 6 days left, but they're over 500,000, which is insane considering the price point of the expansion there. Warcrow Adventures, again, $250,000 there. Again, I'm just going down all of these, right? Dreadful Meadows, I mean, you can't do the conversion, but it's about $53,000 right there. Deep Madness, almost $250,000. Aqua Garden is well over $100,000. Then we scroll down here, we get to Harrow County, which has got over almost $200,000 as well. Redwood's got almost $200,000. Scroll. We get to Stifling Dark, $134,000, $139,000 right there. And we get to a few of these others. Life of Amazonia, almost breaking 100K. And I mean, that's a lot of stuff, right? That's a lot of stuff doing really, really well. And I completely forgot to talk about 7th Sea this past week. It's a CCG, it doesn't count. I'm just getting reminded of stuff. And this is only on Kickstarter, right? This doesn't include any of the stuff over on GameFound or BackerKit like Spirit Island. Yeah, I mean, if you go back over here real quick, you get almost to 200,000 with Escape from New York, and you're at 150,000 as well for Trickshot. So those are two other games that are going to kill it. And now you're seeing the preview pages for Destinies and 20 Strong, like I mentioned previously. And I think Tabriz is right there too. So 3 of the games that I just talked about. Boom! Look at that segue. Look at that. It all goes full circle, folks. It's not like I planned this. I don't actually plan any of this. It's all off the top of my head. So that's the fun part of this. Let's go to the final thoughts. That's all I got. Well, by the time you guys are watching this, I'm going to either be at work or trying to jet to a kid's soccer game. And when I say that, I'm not actually probably going to be trying to jet to a kid's soccer game because my wife already told me that if one of us can be home by then one of us is staying home with the kids. So it's either go and be the only parent again 2 weeks in a row at my kid's soccer game. And like my kid was killing it. Like my 9-year-old, I love him to death. He is like, he's super fast, but he's not very aggressive. Like aggressive is not like his thing in sports, right? Like, and he's getting to be a really good defender. Like just clear the ball. And I wish they put him on offense and he kind of staggers, but on defense, he knows what to do. So I really hate missing his game. But then the other 2 kids, it's just, someone's got to stay home with them, and my wife didn't see him play last week, and so I feel like she would like to go see him, and so I'm probably gonna do that side of things. And I'm working all weekend, so I don't really have a whole lot else going on. I've got again some B-roll to do for a couple games sitting right here that you can't see that are just got a camera shot. I've got a couple game reviews I need to finish, like I mentioned, of Hidden Leaders as well as Die of the Dead, and yeah, I don't know what else. I'm just trying to come up with that new review thing. I think it's gonna be short and sweet, just totally and we'll go with that. One of the suggestions from the Patreon folks, shout out there, was just be like me, cranked up to 11, right? Like just totally be utterly sarcastic, utterly just off the wall in terms of that on the review. So that's what you guys want, right? You want me to like ramble on a review. I'll just, that's maybe what I should do, is just ramble the whole review. Don't tell you anything about the game, just rant on it. That'd be really entertaining. Well, that might be part of Trudvang, so if you want to see that, you better tune in. But that's about all I got right now, so take it for what you will. I'm rambling already at the end here, so I got nothing else. Join the Patreon. Get the exclusive looks. Help support me. Did you know? Side note, very end here, just for people who are actually listening at this point. YouTube, and I haven't talked about this on the channel much, YouTube does not incentivize, right? Like I get about 50,000 views on the channel a month, anywhere between about 40 to 60, depending on what month it is and how many people tune in and that sort of stuff, right? Which is like nothing. I think Dice Tower gets like 100,000 views a day on their channel. So, I mean, that tells you something as well. Like most of my videos range in about the 1,200 views if you average all of them overall. And so I'll tell you right now, from Patreon, the monthly people doing Patreon, like $1 or $2, what I get on Patreon is almost as much as I get on YouTube for 50,000 views a month. Think about that for a second. That's why some of the bigger channels, like even like, the bigger channels do crowdfunding. That's why they do Patreon, right? That's why they've tried to really incentivize that, because they're making more from that than they are anything else. Not that that's my incentive by any means, but just to give you guys a little bit of insight on that side of things, because that's not something like people talk about a ton. But there is a definite like skew there. If you're doing it for more money, YouTube views are not it. And that's why you've also seen the rise of paid previews, is because, I guarantee you, I could make as much with 2 paid previews as I probably could more than the 50,000 views on YouTube. Telling you that right now. So that's also why you see it. And so if you are doing it from that incentive wise, and if you think about it as a hobby, right? Like if I'm doing this as a hobby, I do 2 paid previews. I make more than someone who gets 50,000 or 60,000 views on YouTube as a channel. And it then funds whatever else I want to buy on, and you can see sort of the gears clicking from that side of things. I'll probably do a video on this more in depth if you guys want in the future. Depends on the popularity of something like that. I'm happy to be transparent about that. It's just, it's one of those things, right? They tell you never to talk about, which I end up talking about anyway. But that's me. That's what you get. And that's why you like me in the first place. And that's why I'm almost at 6,400, 6,500. I don't know. Whatever. However many. I try not to pay attention either. Like, I stay away from my metrics page on YouTube for a reason. Like, I hate looking at it because inevitably I compare it to other people's, or inevitably I want to click on other people's and see how nope. And so I try and stay as far away from that page as I can, because otherwise it gets up here, and I don't do that for up here. I do that for down here. So too long a ramble at the end. See, that's what happens when I leave the camera on for too long. It just spews out. Peace out. Stay classy. See you around. It's what happens when you try and speak too fast.